Hi everybody, that's Allie.
And that is Dash,
Welcome to our playdate.
where we choose a game, sometimes make up our own rules, and play for a while.
Enjoy listening and playing along.
Or don't. We can't hear you. It's a podcast.
Art and Design by Nate Duval. I love the last name Duval. It's such a good, it's French, it's classy. It reminds me of Shelley Duvall, who I grew up with and I love.
Yeah, Duval's a solid last name.
I think it's such a beautiful last name. It's so classy to me. If you're a Duval, what a blessing you have in your life. I love your last name. I would not take it if it was not mine and I happened to marry someone I would not take it. It's yours. It's something the universe gave you, and I hope that you love it.
And with that said, hi, little ghosties.
Hi, little ghosties. And hi, Shelley Duvall, if you're listening. I love you.
And any little ghosties named Duval, if we have any ghosties named Duval,
Yes.
put it down in the comments
I
below.
believe it's French. I think it's a French last name. And that could just be because I'm associating it with New Orleans.
Oh, maybe.
And I associate New Orleans with French and Creole culture.
And they have a lot of, like, names, right? Like, Dumont, yeah.
Duvet.
So, Duvet.
No, that's a cover.
The Duvet cover.
The Duvet.
Yeah. What are we playing today?
Today we are playing a game called Tilted and he still
You gotta pull back a little bit.
In the car. No filter.
Yeah.
You can't see it from the swipe, but
It's a very colorful box.
yeah, it's a beautiful box. I got this game at Walgreens on sale. So if you're on a road trip like we are, second episode from the road. Third episode from the road.
Yeah. Because we did one on the way up.
That's right.
Now we're doing one on the way down.
Episode 3 on the road. Stop at a Walgreens and go to the game section and grab some stuff to do in the car. I love it.
Check out the sales section wherever you go. Like, even places where you wouldn't normally go to buy certain, like, you go to Walgreens, you're not there for games, but check out the clearance section.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just have really cool stuff.
Are people out here not checking the clearance section?
I think there are people out here who are living their lives not checking the clearance sections for things.
You know, one thing that really struck me about moving to Miami
What's
is
that, Allie?
the Target clearance section is literally 4 shelves and there's nothing there. It's so upsetting. Because back home, the clearance section is a whole section.
Right.
You get the red sticker, and you're just like, I don't need this.
Right.
But I'm gonna get it because it's $4.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Ooh, do you want to hear a tip?
Which is really peak Target.
I know you don't shop there, but maybe maybe some of our little ghosties might shop there. And there's a great tip that I just learned recently, and has really saved me some money. On things I wasn't going to spend money on in the first place.
Of course, right. Yeah.
So if you go to Walmart and you have the Walmart app on your phone, there is a barcode scanning feature on the app, and you can go to items that you were going to buy. So it doesn't have to be clearance, but it happens a lot more in clearance items. You can go up to the clearance item and scan the barcode, and the price might be cheaper on Walmart online, and they will match it in the store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So an item that was originally $8 has now been rolled back to $5.99. But when you scan it, it might be $3 clearance on Walmart online.
I would like to say that you used the term rolled back, which tells me that you are a long-time Walmart customer.
Uh-huh.
And also a watcher of Walmart commercials. Because I would never have used that phrase.
Well, I loved Walmart because I knew about it, but where I'm from in New Jersey didn't have it. So we didn't get to go to a Walmart until we moved down to Florida. And then I kind of overdid it, like you do with any new addiction.
Yeah, you're like, I've never had a Slurpee, and then you have one every day for a month, and you're like, I don't know, I have to recalibrate how I feel about Slurpees because this was too much.
Right.
There has to be a medium of a Slurpee every day for a month and no Slurpees.
No Slurpees at all, right? Maybe one a week. So that was me with Wally World. So Wally World, get the app, and get this, you could probably do the same thing with a lot of other retail locations.
And this has
Target,
been
Walgreens.
Money saving tips with Dash. All right. So today's game, no filter. Again, well, whatever. The box is beautiful. I got it at Walmart. It's the Candid Conversation game, and it's by a company out of Nashville called Big G Creative. Big G Creative. And we're not going to play the way it's intended. The real game involves like dice, and it's better if you have more than 2 people. It's technically a 3+ player game. So we'll have a guest on. We'll play it the real way at some point. But for now,
As we advertised in the opening of our show, sometimes we play by our own rules.
we're going to just make up our own rules, and we're just going to use these conversation cards to have a conversation. Yeah, there's 2 questions on every card. There's a top question and a bottom question, and we decided we are both going to answer
Both
both
questions.
questions.
If they apply to us.
If they apply. If not,
Right.
pass is an
Right,
option.
is an option.
Sure. Okay. So first set of questions. Describe a time when you thought it doesn't get any better than this.
Ooh,
That's a great question.
that's a fantastic question.
I know mine.
You know yours?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and you do yours while I think of mine.
Mine is, I went to Greece. It's years ago now, probably 10 years ago now. And I was there for a program. And it was a bunch of teachers from all over the U.S. And at the end of the program, we had been together a week, 10 days, whatever it was. And we had this tour guide who lived in Athens. And he has I don't know if he still has it, an apartment that was basically the highest point allowed in that part of Athens. Because they have building codes that you can't go past a certain height. And so he had the top floor apartment of this building in Athens. You can literally see the Acropolis from this man's windows.
Wow.
And so we go out onto the roof, and it's all of us, we spent all this time together. We've had these, really wonderful conversations. We all ended up having to go to the hospital together because somebody broke their arm on the trip.
Oh, no.
You really bond with people when you're away from home.
Yeah.
And we go up to the rooftop of our tour guide's apartment, and we were having beverages. Someone started singing karaoke, and all of a sudden we're singing karaoke, Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody" on the rooftop in Athens. And I remember thinking, you have to remember this because life does not get better.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is it. And I have another one, actually.
Ooh,
Yeah. More recently, mine are all travel related, but
sure.
more recently, I was working and chaperoning a trip to Austria.
That's right.
And I think I've told you this story, but I haven't told it on the pod. And at the end of this particular program, they bring in a musician.
Okay.
So they brought in a classical pianist. The man is, truly makes his living as a pianist. Phenomenal artist, phenomenal musician. And one of the students who was on this trip, we have dinner together. We're having a good time. The kids are kind of having a party in the downstairs area. I'm just sitting by the fire, kind of enjoying being in this castle. It was in a literal castle. And one of the students asks this piano player to play a couple more songs.
Okay.
And so he starts playing Hyper Ballad by Bjork. And I know that there's 2 people in the room who know that song, and it's him and it's me.
Yeah.
And so he's singing and playing Hyper Ballad by Bjork, and I'm sitting in this great room of a palace. There's a fire burning. People are just I'm sorry. There weren't any books in the room. There's beautiful art, and there's the students were just celebrating. They were really being kids, which is something that I enjoy observing. Just 18-year-olds acting like 18-year-olds, you know what I mean? In a very wholesome, sweet way. And that was a pretty good moment too. I was just I'm listening to Hyper Ballad by Bjork played by a world-class musician in a palace in Austria. This is pretty darn great.
That's awesome.
It can't get better than this, as the card says.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a lovely
it was
time.
good. There were some good times. You got one?
I think so. I
You
don't.
want to take one of mine?
No. I don't think it was any one specific moment, but rather like a certain section of my life where things were pretty good as far as I can remember. And it may just be rose-colored glasses, right? But there was a portion of my life, and I think it was the year I turned 30. So, yeah, it was the year I turned 30. And in that year, I got promoted to my new job. So I was now, instead of just being a regular staff member and employee, I was now the coordinator of a department. So I oversaw people and stuff. So it was just a new stage in my life, in my career, really. I just started doing improv that year. If you remember, I turned 30 while we were,
I think so.
yeah.
I think so.
You know, I just started doing improv. I was coming off of what now I consider the peak of my wrestling career. So I was still wrestling, and it was a good time in my wrestling career. I was dating this awesome girl. I don't remember what her name is now, but it was around that time.
Yeah.
You know, someone I still talk to this day. She was cool.
Well, you keep in touch with most of your
Yeah, I keep in touch with most of my exes.
that's
So yeah, I hope she's doing well wherever she is. So yeah, it was. I think that time was a good. You know, I was in a good relationship. I had a good job.
Yeah.
Both of my hobbies were up and kicking and doing good things.
I honestly feel like life starts to get really good in your 30s.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I'm older now, but like for me, there was so much uncertainty. Even into my 30s, there was still a lot of like uncertainty about some really big things in my life.
Yeah.
But like I started to care less, and I started to prioritize those things less, and I started to actually just like, okay, but this is where you are.
Right.
And like if you're gonna look forward and wonder and hope and worry and blah blah blah, like that's not gonna get you any farther to that goal. You have to enjoy what is here right now.
Right.
And like I don't know, I feel like life starts to get good when you turn 30.
Yeah. I feel like it's
around your 30s.
Around
right?
your
like
30s.
28 maybe,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's when it really starts to get good.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff that happened. Like you've been building up. You know what I mean? Like you've been revving up to certain things, and around your 30s is when those.
Hey kids, Grandma Allie says life starts to get good in your 30s. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff from your teens and your 20s that you finally shake off.
Yeah, right.
In
Exactly.
your 30s,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then hopefully all the hard work that you've been doing, career-wise or whatever, if that's your thing, right? If that's what you use as a measure, right? All the hard work you've been doing in your teens and 20s sort of starts to pay off in your 30s.
Yeah.
Right?
It's good.
You've been through all the bad relationships because you didn't know anything about relationships. And now you're in your 30s, so now you know what to look for in relationships.
Don't get us wrong. You're not gonna have it all figured out.
Right.
I still sometimes look around and I'm like, I need an adult.
Yeah.
Like I'm in my 40s and I still am like, I need an adult.
I am an adult and I need an adult.
Right.
I'm an adult, you're an adult.
And there's no point. I don't think anyone ever has it figured out ever, and I think the people who do are completely and totally lying to you.
Yeah.
But you start to feel so much less unsure of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it just, I don't know, life gets good in the 30s, I feel.
What's the bottom?
Bottom question. What song title best describes your social life? Your social life.
What song title best describes my social life?
This is the first one that came to mind. Crazy Train. Black Sabbath.
Really?
Crazy Train. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean that in terms of like my social life is crazy. I just mean like I have my little posse of weirdos and I love them and they love me back and that's it.
Okay.
And we did, you know, we're coming off an improv festival where we saw some stuff that's just like, you bring in a muggle, as they say, into that, and they're very, or what did the guy call it? He said a civilian.
A civilian.
He said, as a civilian. So you bring civilians or you bring muggles into that situation, and it seems very weird and off-putting. You're like, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of people I like.
Yeah, I like that.
So maybe Crazy Train.
God, I can't. You know what? I like
Bring in the clowns.
Bring in the clowns. I don't know. Honestly, right now it's because more like song titles escape my mind than anything.
It's so quiet. Happy York.
All right, let's see. My social life is very non-existent.
Untitled.
Untitled.
We're just gonna call it untitled.
You know me, and I'm sure if I tell you, you could probably figure out a song title that would work for it, right? But like my social life is very much like, what are we doing? We're gonna go do a thing. All right, we're gonna show up and we're gonna do the thing, and then we're gonna go our separate ways, right? Like, are we going axe throwing? All right, we're gonna show up at the place and we're gonna throw some axes, and then I'm gonna go home. Like, I don't know. I'm weird like that.
All right, little ghosties, hop in, and tell Dash what song describes his social life.
Yeah. You know, I have my very close circle of friends, right? Like, I have my wrestling buddies, and we get together and we watch wrestling and have fun that way. Where I have my improv friends, and we get together and do improv. You know, that's my social. Like, I don't party, I don't go to clubs, I don't go to meetups, I don't do any of that stuff, which I should, but I don't.
Yeah. You tell us, little girl.
Yeah, you tell us.
Jump into the comments and what song describes Dash's social life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Card number 2.
Yes, card number 2.
What is your hidden talent?
It's not as hidden because I've been asked that question so many times that I've
it's
told
not
it.
hidden anymore.
Right.
Really, it's revealed.
But like my hidden talent, let's just say a gratuitous talent, like a weird talent that you don't really get to use or
Sure, yeah.
I can catch a pile of quarters off my elbow.
Yeah.
That's my
Oh,
hidden
maybe we'll
talent.
do like a little video on Insta or something.
Okay,
A little
yeah.
bonus content of you
Little
doing. I've
bonus
seen him
content.
do it. He can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how one discovers one has this talent or why one would spend time honing this talent, but here we go.
I know exactly how
He
I
puts a
discovered
bunch
it.
of quarters on his elbow and
Right.
then like quickly moves the elbow and catches the quarters.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it.
It was so there was an episode of Happy Days where they were doing a whole Guinness World Record thing, right? And like Richie and his girlfriend were trying to break the record for longest what's the ride where like somebody rides on your shoulders? It's not a piggyback ride, but it's
Chicken, where you're playing
I
chicken?
guess I don't know what it was. But they were trying to break that record. It was this whole thing about like breaking records, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they had a cousin in town who was like, "Oh, I want to try breaking a record." So but they didn't know what to do. So they found in the Guinness World Records book that there was a record for most quarters caught off of your elbow, or catching quarters off of your elbow, and it was like some certain thousands. And just continuously, like, here's a stack of 10 quarters, catch them. Next stack, catch them, and in a certain amount of time.
Oh, it wasn't like 1,000 all stacked up.
Right? No, it's
That
not
would
1,000.
like break your
Yeah.
arm.
But it-
1,000 quarters. That's a lot.
That's a lot of quarters.
That's like
yeah.
$250, right?
1,000 divided by 4, yeah, 250, yeah, $250 in quarters. But the way they did it was they just had like 5 stacks of quarters, and while he was catching one, somebody was getting the next stack ready, and they would give it to him, he'd stack it, he'd catch it, then they'd go to the next stack, and like that. And he tried to break the record in a certain amount of time of catching that many quarters, and I went like, whoa, that's cool. That's not something I ever even imagined doing, and I wonder if I could do it. So I just put a quarter on my elbow and caught it. And then little by little, I tried to do more and more and more and more. And I think my limit was 22 quarters at one time. And anything more than that, like if I tried to do 23, I would catch 22 and one would fall out.
Well, your hand is only
so big.
So big, yeah. You gotta have some big old catcher gloves.
Catcher hands, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't know if I could even try to break the record. I don't know if I could break the
If it's
record.
even still a record.
It's
might not
even
be
still a record. It might not be anymore, but yeah, that's my hidden talent. I can put quarters on my elbow and then catch them in the air.
Yeah, can confirm.
Can confirm. What's yours?
What's my hidden talent? I think a lot of people don't know I'm actually, like, I write things. I think people don't know that about me.
Okay. Like, for example, your play that was recently
Right.
done?
Yeah, like, I have published, work. Not a ton of it, but I've published things and had things produced. So that's pretty good. Yeah. It's not really hidden, but that. I don't know if it's a talent or just a quirk, but I also just, like, make up songs. Like, in class, I'll just make up weird songs. I do it at home where I, like, put my cat's names into songs and stuff, which is, it should stay hidden because no one, that's a talent that should stay hidden.
No one should hear that.
It's like a weird private thing that I do with my cats. But, yeah, I mean, do you think I have hidden talents?
I know you tap dance.
I did tap dance for a while.
That's a hidden talent.
Yeah.
You crochet. That's not that hidden.
Yeah. Right. What's the definition of hidden? Like, I just do it secretly in a corner in my room.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Like, I don't know that hidden talent is the right word anymore. It's got to be like a
it's
unique
just like
talent.
what's a thing that I do that a lot of people don't know about, which to me it feels like my writing. So anyway, I'll say that. Describe the craziest dream you've ever had.
I have so many crazy dreams, and I write them down when they're like when I wake up and I remember, and it's a particularly good one. I'll write it down.
By good, you mean like good storyline, a big?
Yeah, like a good storyline, like because I write it down and I think to myself, like, if I took this concept and polished it off so that like there wouldn't be random dream stuff in it, right?
But if you like told your brain this is how stories work, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just the chaotic energy that you're giving right now.
Right. This would make a pretty good movie or a script or
a play. Have you
heard
that? That was an Indian Trail motorcycle next to us.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice bike, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a great day to ride a bike. Motorcycle bike.
So yeah, like I write them down sometimes. I know there's recurring dreams that I have where like it's a very Jurassic Park-ish situation.
I want to have a recurring dream, but I don't.
No?
No.
Huh.
I don't have like the typical dreams.
Okay.
I don't have that many. Well, I guess you have dreams every night, but I don't remember them. I don't think I sleep well enough to like be in a dream and come out of it.
Gotcha.
I don't have recurring dreams. I never had a flying dream in my life. All of the kind of tropes, I don't have them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
I know. Do you have a specific dream that was the craziest?
Well,
that's the adjective here, craziest.
Yeah,
dream.
I'm sure. Like, if I looked in my notes where I write down all my weird dreams, I would probably find some good ones.
But like none are sticking out right now.
I mean, the only one that sticks out of my head is the recurring one where we're like, it's very Jurassic Park. Like we're in a lab or whatever, and dinosaurs have escaped, and we're moving around and trying to rescue people who are still in there, but there are also dinosaurs roaming around the halls.
Is it always the same people?
No, it's different people every time. The only, I guess the elements that stay the same are it's a laboratory science building type situation. That's a recurring theme.
Okay.
Something has escaped and is out and about, roaming the hallways of this building, lab, whatever. Scientific situation. And there are people who need to be rescued. Those are the three recurring themes in that dream. But then, like, more often than not, it's dinosaurs. Sometimes it's like zombies or weird, like, doom monsters. The characters are always different. The people who need to be rescued are always different.
Interesting.
The weapons we use are either like super futuristic or very retro or just like melee weapons.
Just a rock.
Just a rock, right? Yeah. Like that always changes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Mm-hmm. I have one, and this dream like truly shook me, and I think about it still.
Yeah.
I was I was probably in high school when I had this dream, like 15 or 16. And at the time, I wore like an ankle bracelet.
Okay.
And so in
Not
the
like
dream,
an ankle monitor.
No, like an ankle bracelet. So in the dream, I was in an aquarium, and the aquarium was like a big hallway, right? So it's like on the sides, and it's also over my head, right? I think Shed Aquarium in Chicago is
I've seen this, right? You're
like
walking
that.
through a tube.
Yeah,
and it's all
right. You're walking through a big tube, this fish or whatever. But in this particular scenario, I was with my friend Leah. I don't know why. I don't know why she was with me in the dream, but we were there looking in the aquarium, and it was a bunch of like stingrays. It was like a stingray exhibit or whatever. And all of a sudden, we're walking through, and the glass just like does that thing that it does in like horror movies or action movies, slowly, where it just cracks, and then the cracks just like slowly expand, and you hear that noise until the whole wall shatters, and these stingrays start like flowing out and flowing out and flowing out.
Oh my!
And I realized that stingrays don't have teeth, but the stingrays in my dream had these like horrible beaver teeth. And one like caught onto my shin and like bit me. And at that moment I wake up and I'm like restless in bed, so I move, and my ankle bracelet had fallen off and my foot touched it. And so for a second I was convinced that there was a stingray in bed with me, because I felt something that was not the bed in my bed.
Yeah.
I lost it. So to this day I'm like a little scared of stingrays, and I don't wear ankle bracelets to bed.
Wow.
Yeah. That one really sticks out.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
I know. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Wild.
I also love when like dreams include people that you haven't talked to in forever. Like just randomly, like they're a character in your dream, and you're like, oh, what? Like I met you once. We had one interaction. Why are you here?
Right. I've had that too, where I'm like, I'm sure I've seen this person's face.
Yeah.
Because they're in my brain, but like I don't know who you are.
Right. And you're
welcome to my dreamscape.
I'm not going to say a fact, because really it's just studies have shown that your brain cannot make up faces.
Yeah.
So if there is a face in your dream, it is because you have seen that face, even if it was just in passing.
I heard that too.
Yeah. I don't know how you prove that, but that is the study.
Yeah, I don't know how one would go about actually proving that hypothesis, other than like making someone wear a GoPro and recording them for years, and then also somehow recording their dreams.
Yeah, right.
But I heard that also.
Yeah,
which is why I feel like this person's face is in my brain somewhere. Brains are wild.
They are.
Hey Dash.
Yes.
Question. What did you like/dislike about where you grew up?
Ooh, what did I like/dislike about where I grew up? So I grew up in New Jersey. And some of the things I liked about it, I liked it when it snowed. And it may just be because I was a kid when it happened, so I never actually had to deal with the snow. The snow just meant A, there was no school, and B, I got to play in the snow. Right?
And also your friends could come over because they also didn't have school.
Right, they also didn't have school. But it was just like looking out the window on a snowy night where like nobody was really out because there was a blizzard, right? So there's barely anybody out in the streets. There's just a calmness.
Yeah.
You know, the snow is falling, everything is sort of like white, and the sky is red, and all like the only lights are just
the sky is red?
Yeah, that's how I remember it. The sky would be red when it was snowing.
What?
I don't know, it's just red.
That's horrifying.
I don't know, that's just how I remember it.
That's
sky
like
was
a
red.
science fiction movie.
No, you know what it might have been? And obviously I'm not a meteorologist, but meteorology was a hobby of mine for a while.
That's such a dash sentence to say anyway.
Isn't it a dash sentence? If the sun is setting at the same time that you're getting the snow cloud cover, it could just be sun rays coming in sideways. You know, like how the sky gets red right before a storm?
Yeah.
Like that, but with a blizzard.
All right.
Yeah, that happens.
Okay. I don't remember ever seeing red sky with
Yeah,
snowfall.
I do. But whatever. It was very, it was just very calming. And then, like, because of the way that our building was set up or whatever, like
you grew up in like an apartment,
yeah,
right?
I grew up in an apartment.
Building.
On the second floor of an apartment building, and you would just like put a blanket over we had heaters, but the heaters were these giant like metal things that were built into the building.
Like radiators.
Radiators, yeah. They were just built into the building.
I love those in like old hotel rooms.
Mhm.
I love them.
But what you would do is you would just take like a really thick blanket and place it over the heater, and then you would either lean against it or sit on it or whatever. So you would have that heat right next to you, but then the cold window and the cold air outside while you're just watching this calm snow falling.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So that's what I loved about New Jersey. The things I hated about New Jersey, when it got hot, it got really hot.
Yeah.
It got super hot.
And now you live in Florida where the heat is absolutely relentless.
Believe it or not, I feel it's actually worse.
It's disrespectful level of heat.
It really is. It's bad here.
You think Jersey was worse?
I think Jersey was worse.
No.
Yeah. I think the Jersey, it was less.
And that's funny because as a kid, I feel like we're much less attuned to like how hot it really is. Because you're a kid, you're running around constantly.
Yeah, you don't care. No, but they were like, you would get heat warning. Like now we get them all the time because I guess they have a new national weather thing where they put out heat warnings.
Yeah.
But back then to get a heat index warning was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember sometimes in the summers we get 2 or 3 of them because when it would get like 110 degrees hot. Like do not go. People's shoes would melt into the sidewalks. And I think a part of it is because we lived in the city, the buildings block any sort of wind from cooling things down. That could be it. Whereas here in Florida, everything is a little bit more open, so it's not as bad, but it's still like 105, 106 degrees with the heat index.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different kind of heat, but yeah. Also, it's New Jersey, so everything smelled like French fries and garbage. You know?
With the Saison of Broken Dreams.
With the Saison of Broken Dreams on top.
Yeah.
I also feel like in New Jersey there isn't a lot of hope and moving forward. Like it was a big city.
I think that's changing.
Yeah?
I think a lot of people are leaving the city, right, New York, and going to New Jersey because they're choosing to have a life that's like, I can commute into the city and have all this chaos and have this job, but I want to go and have a place that's like peaceful.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like I really do think that that's changing.
Yeah. Our neighborhood was peaceful. I'll give you that. As far as when I wasn't out there making a ruckus playing basketball or football or whatever in the streets,
breaking your arms skateboarding,
breaking my legs skateboarding, like a ruffian. It wasn't bad. You know what I mean? Like we didn't live in a particularly dangerous neighborhood. I mean, there were the drug houses and stuff, but you just kind of stayed away from them.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another thing I hated. The apartment house directly behind our building would constantly catch on fire. I don't understand.
Someone was getting insurance money.
I don't get it, man.
Maybe, I don't know.
Like it was mostly abandoned, and then they'd start building it up, and then it would catch fire, and then they'd like leave it abandoned, and then it would catch fire again.
That's fascinating.
I feel like it was a lot of like there were probably a lot of drifters and squatters and stuff living there. And when it would get cold, you start fires to keep warm, and then stuff would catch on fire.
The fire jumps out of the barrel, and then it's.
Well, yeah, I couldn't tell you like. In the time that we lived there, and I lived there until I was maybe 13, 14, it must have caught fire like 4 times.
Wild.
Right? The same house. Yeah.
I want to know what was going on.
Go ahead. What was yours?
So
what
for
did
me,
you love? What did you hate?
Likes, I'm in contrast of where I live now, I'm really happy I grew up where we had like a big backyard, and we had a sandbox, and we had a big garden for a while. I remember my mom canning fruit for a while, and and eating things from the garden. Like I'm really happy that I grew up like that, where there was just like space and things were spread out.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to like living in the city.
Yeah. I've been to your childhood home. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And seasons, I really loved seasons growing up. Snow days are fantastic. I loved fall.
Fall, spring. When
And
God, I miss seasons.
it felt like a community growing up, we didn't have a huge high school, but it was big enough to where you could kind of carve out your own little space, but small enough to where everyone sort of knew everybody else, at least a little bit, names and faces and stuff. So that was nice too. It really did sort of feel like a community.
Yeah.
Dislikes, it always felt small to me.
Okay.
It just always felt small, and I always felt like this probably isn't it.
I got that. Yeah. This was
probably,
just a building block to whatever.
Yeah, this isn't the forever place.
Right.
I just sort of always felt that. And it may be a place I go back to later on in life. I don't know, but yeah, it's just like you get that, like, I want to get out of this small town feeling, and I feel like I had that for a long time, which isn't anything to do with the town. I think that's actually more to do with me as a person,
Right.
But I think a lot of people feel that no matter where they grow up. They just think, I want to get out of here.
Right.
And so I didn't get out of there for a super long time, and then I got real far.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, you left very far.
Yeah. So that I have great childhood memories. I wouldn't change anything. It was great. I really loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what was the name of this game? Oh, do we have another question? One more?
We can end at 5. You don't want
Sure.
to do the last one on the card?
Yeah,
we're deep in this episode. We can wrap it up. So the name of this game, one more time, is, you can't even see it, is No Filter, the Candid Conversation game. And we haven't played this before. We should rate it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the cards are really lovely.
I haven't even touched the cards.
He hasn't touched. They're matte, right?
Okay.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
They're matte.
Yeah, they're matte coated.
The font is a really nice, clean, clear font, and then the coloration on them is kind of, greens and blues on the outside. We have some yellows.
It's very
oranges, pink. So I'm gonna rate these cards a tie-dye project that you do at summer camp. That's what these cards are.
Okay. I like a bookmark. I feel like they're very similar to bookmarks.
And the box, good box. Also
Yeah, it's a good box.
You didn't rate the box.
I think the box also has a UV coating where the letters are glossy, right?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the box itself is matte and the letters are glossy, which is very nice. That is called UV spot coating or spot UV.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do I rate this then? Is it like a bottle of sunscreen for the UV coating? Is that how we do it? The box is equivalent to a bottle of sunscreen?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right. Playability. We didn't play it the real way.
Right.
So the way we played it, super easy. But the real way remains to be seen.
Yeah.
There's dice involved. You got to have more people. And,
right.
Depending on what you roll on the dice, the certain person answers the question.
Yeah. Playability the way we played it, very easy.
Yeah.
Like a game of catch.
Game of catch. And then fun.
Right. Game of catch, right? Because this game has rules that make it more complicated, right? Like regular baseball, but we played the catch version, which is just throwing the ball back and forth.
Sure. Yeah. And then fun. I had fun.
Yeah,
we always have fun.
Mm-hmm.
This was a less like, yeah, da-da-da-da-da, yeah, episode.
But it also wasn't like we played other conversation starter games that are much deeper and bring up a lot of feelings. And this one was just more casual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a good second date. It's like a second date level of fun.
Yeah, okay.
Where you don't feel awkward, but we're not ready to get deep.
Yes,
we're not ready to talk about feelings.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, the second date level of fun.
Right.
If you're dating people who are fun.
Yeah.
If you're dating people who aren't fun, That's your business.
If I ever go on a second date again, I will bring these cards along with me.
That would be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah. Like, what would you do? Like, I've thought about it often,
Right.
and I guess we'll end the pod on this. I've thought about this often. Like, what if I showed up to a speed dating event with just like a deck of conversation starter cards? Right? Like, ding, I sit down. Hi, my name is Dash. Nice to meet you. Just say when, and then just stop the cards and be like, here it is. Would you like to answer it, or would you like me to answer it?
When you told me that version of the story, it was you were also doing card tricks with the cards.
Yes, that's right.
And I feel it has to be one or the other. It cannot be both. It's either card tricks or conversation cards. Not both.
Right.
That's my advice to you.
Okay.
I'm terrible at dating, so take what you will from it. Thanks for listening, little ghosties. We love you. Thanks for coming on this road trip with us. Thanks for listening to all of these episodes that are like Countdown Improv Festival themed. If you want to know anything about the festival, please message us. We love to talk about it.
We're wearing the shirts right now. These are the
yeah.
official Countdown Improv Festival.
These are the official shirts
for
for the
2023.
year. First year they've done ringers, which we love.
Yes. Yeah.
Message us about that, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it, or connect you with people who know all the things about it.
Yeah. Rate, review, subscribe. The two things that really help us out is leave us a comment, write us a review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That really helps us out. Check out the video version of this on YouTube and give us a share. Share our podcast with somebody you think would enjoy it. A lot of people just like to have podcasts on in the background. I feel like ours is a good one for that.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe wash some dishes, do some vacuuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening to us, folks.
We appreciate you, little ghosties.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Now we'd love to hear from you.
You can visit playdatepod.us to watch our videos,
Access our episode library,
find out more about our brand of quality, clean comedy.
and contact us with any questions or comments.
Improvisers love audience suggestions, so make sure you visit playdatepod.us.
And the podcast you just heard was a production of Society Circus Players.
If you like what you heard today, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
And finally, if life's a circus, we're the clowns!
The lighting is like, because I have the like blue on my glasses, I feel like the whole time you just can't even see my eyes. I just look like I'm in a Tron movie or something.
No, you're moving around. You can see your eyes. It's not always in the same place.
I try, and I'm also not paying attention to the camera, so I'm just like looking at you.
The lighting has also changed a bunch of times because it's gone from like super sunny to rainy to super sunny to cloudy.
Florida in the summer is great.